Okay, well then let's begin. Yes?
Yes.
You're ready to rumble?
Ready, ready.
Okay, Ramona, thank you very much for agreeing for this to this interview. I asked you to participate in this because you left some very interesting comments on my blog, detailing your journey, your experience with cancer and vaginal ozone insufflations. So first of all, let me ask you, so what was your exact diagnosis? What is it that you were treating with ozone?
Okay, well, I had, I'm going to read it from the report.
Mm-hmm.
I had cervical cancer, which is squamous cell carcinoma with extensively necrotic tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was told that means is that I was advanced and inoperable. I'm going to give a little detail about the symptoms, all right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important that women know, and men too. So here's the symptoms. It's called the silent killer. So I had absolutely no symptoms. I'm going to say symptoms that would relate to cervical cancer up until the day, August 3rd, 2018, when I went to the bathroom and stood up from the toilet, and there was blood in the toilet. Now I'm post-menopause. I had menopause when I was 44. I had menopause young. So this was, I am 64 now, just so you know, just to give I was 62 at the time. I stood up from the toilet. There was a lot of blood. And the first thing I thought was, gee, who used the toilet before me and is bleeding? This is an emergency. They have to, I yelled for my husband. I said, you need to go to the hospital. So there was no pain, nothing, just blood. And then I realized it was coming out of me. So we did go to the hospital, which was almost a useless visit. I had to stay in the emergency room. They did all the vitals and everything, and then they just said you have to go to a gynecologist, which I then went to a gynecologist. And that was this is from the gynecologist, what I just read from you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, this was not a oncological gynecologist, so I didn't get the information that it was advanced. He just sent the way it goes is then they send you to the gynecological oncologist, and you're in what I call the conveyor belt of cancer. In other words, the next thing is a PET scan or a CAT scan, and then what's called they do a very extensive cervical and colon. They look in the stomach, the bladder. I think it was the bladder. They look elsewhere. They put you out to do this. I turned all of that down. I had no radiation, no chemo. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I had no PET scan or CAT scan because that involves radiation. And from my research, radiation can seed cancer, and I didn't want to take that chance. So basically, I didn't go to an oncological gynecologist right away.
Mm-hmm.
I continued to bleed quite profusely. As a matter of fact, in December by that time, I bled 27 out of 31 days, 30 days in December. I have a chart. So I was not worried because I knew that I could deal with this naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant to me diet, supplements, and detoxing. So I'll put the ozone in the detox, category, perhaps. I'm not sure where to exactly put it. It was my husband who suggested the ozone. He had shared an office at one time with Dr. Harold Robbins. I don't know if you know that doctor. He's considered
Yes.
the ozone doctor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we called him on his cell phone, and we talked, and he told me all about the 10-pack and getting IV and all that. Of course, I was invited and referred to different places where I could get that, but it was very expensive. So I'm a very DIY type of person. So I don't know how we found Promo Life, but we found Promo Life, I think, by just looking online. And I spoke with them. What a company. Wow. You get somebody on the phone, they know your name. It's great. I called one time and they called me. I hung up because I got the machine. They called me back. I didn't even leave a message. And they were like, you just called. Like I feel like they care about me. They
Mm-hmm.
told me about you. So I had bought a generator from them because I knew that that's how I wanted to go. And I bought the basic one, by the way. I didn't go too fancy because I wasn't sure, if it was going to work or not. And they said they didn't think I needed the upgraded one. So I went with the basic. And I started using it. I looked at your website. I looked at all of your, I read the blog from the start to finish more than one time and honed in. I feel like I know those gals personally. I also read about the rectal insufflation and I thought, the vagina is the way for me to go. So because the tumor, which I was told was large. And I said, well, what do you mean by large? Can you show me with your hands? And he was like this. I'm like, okay, that's considered a large tumor. I guess on your cervix, about the same size as your cervix, so it must be large. I thought, well, if I ozone it enough, it'll pop. That's what I figured, right? Of course, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I pretty much, I think I popped it within a few weeks of doing ozone. And how do I know this? Well, finally, when I got all the ozone stuff correct, and by the way, my husband had to help me to set it up, because when it arrives, it is a machine and tubes and a humidifier and a booklet on how to put it together. And when you're ill, like when I, being, actively bleeding, you just, that's what you're like, I can't do this, Normally I could do something like that. But he helped set it up. That was crucial. I think people need to have help to set them up if they're in terrible shape.
Mm-hmm.
So he helped me set it up, and I started using it. The first couple times I did wrong things, and I actually don't think I was ozonating at all. When I say wrong things, I had them plugged in wrong, and and he corrected it, and finally we got it right. Now, I was actively bleeding and I did the ozone while I was bleeding. I had no choice. So that's, in a sense, if you think about pouring hydrogen peroxide on a cut, you might get some stinging.
Mm-hmm.
And ozone is a type of, I think, oxygenation.
Mm-hmm.
You can say it's quite like hydrogen peroxide, the best thing I can compare it to. So yes, there was stinging and bubbling. Now the bubbling might have been the gas, but I soldiered through it and it wasn't terrible. I'm sure it was better than chemo and radiation and any kind of operation. It wasn't terrible. So I did continue to do it, and eventually that went away and it felt warm and welcoming and comfortable, and I loved it. I did it every day after I built up, by the way, not just right out of the gate. I built up as was recommended or suggested. And one night, I always had to wear a pad at night, and I had to wear the heavy duty kind, the ones that are really long and really thick. So one night, I was sleeping very, very, very soundly, and I could feel blood coming out of me more than usual. But
Mm-hmm.
it felt good. It was warm. It was just in the morning, and I took a picture of it. That pad was saturated. I mean, saturated. So I don't know how much blood I lost. But after that, nothing, nothing. I think it was the tumor. I think what happened was the tumor broke and it just bled out, because they are just a lump of,
Yeah.
bloody cells that are taking blood from your system. So then after that, no more blood. And I continued. Not every day. I have a calendar. I kept a diary of it, and I still do it today. I do it once or twice a week. Factories basically closed down there. I'm not having any more children or anything like that. So I feel like I'm getting back to the factory settings here with the ozone. I hope I didn't give you too much information.
No, no,
Oh,
absolutely no.
okay.
But I have lots of questions building
Oh,
up.
good.
But
Good,
yeah,
good.
continue.
Okay. So uh, I don't know what you wanted. Why don't you ask me a question now?
Okay, all right. So then, yeah, let me ask you a question. Okay, so how many weeks into your daily ozone? So it was vaginal ozone insufflations that you were doing, yes? So
Yes.
how many weeks into that daily vaginal insufflations did you experience this incident where basically something popped, as you said?
Let me get my charts. I'll tell you in a
Okay.
minute. So that would have been, I got my ozone unit in November, late November of
Mm-hmm.
2018.
18. Okay.
Oh, no, maybe 2019. Let me see. Um,
Because your first comment on my page was in December 2019.
oh, yes, right. Because in November, it was just trial and error, and I didn't know how to set the machine up. And then I went, I haven't been doing ozone. I think I am. I put the catheter up there. Nothing was, I just had it wrong, the setup.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Okay.
got the setup right by December. Well, I can't find it now because I have dyslexia and I put these in backwards. So I'm going to have to just remember then.
Okay.
I know that it was, I started officially marked on my calendar December 3rd that
Mm-hmm.
I had got it right finally.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it was at least maybe 10 treatments after that, that incident occurred.
So you were saying that you were doing them daily, so basically 10 days after
Yeah,
you started them.
pretty
Yes?
much. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay, and then after you bled out, after this popping incident, then the bleeding stopped?
It didn't stop entirely. It stopped for it stopped for a while, and
Uh-huh.
I had started doing ozone suppositories when I couldn't figure out how to work the machine,
Mm-hmm.
and I started doing them in November on the 20th, actually, and
Mm-hmm.
I just put them in almost every night,
But you were using the suppositories rectally or vaginally?
vaginally,
Mm-hmm.
and
How many of them would you put in per day or at once?
I started with just a quarter of one because I didn't know what it would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I used castor oil jelly
Mm-hmm.
to sort of like bring it up there because I put it in a plunger and I would plunge it up so it would go all the way up. By the way, I have put a lot of things in the vagina. I used at one point, there's something called Bakelin. It's a Chinese herb. In vitro, it does kill squamous cell carcinoma. There's scientific papers on it. And I got it from a lab in Chicago where they check it for purity. And it's a powder, it's yellow. And I mixed that with hump fat. Hump fat comes from a camel. Okay, where did I get that? Well, that was shipped to me also. And the reason I used hump fat is because it has a very slow melting point. So
Mm-hmm.
I made this concoction, a bolus, and I plunged it up there. I used to do that every single night before I found out about ozone. Did it do anything? I don't know. It made a mess. But that's one of the things I tried. And
But
until I found out about that
mhm,
I could do ozone, which appeals to me much more because it's not messy,
mhm.
you
But did
know.
you feel that the ozone suppositories that they were doing anything or not really?
Actually, yes. And I got those also from Promo Life. Uh, yeah, I did at one point when I put the whole one in, the whole suppository, because I was just like, just put the whole suppository. I had the day after is when I had the very dark, heavy bleed.
Mm-hmm.
But and that was December. Okay, so this is 2019. That makes sense. Yeah, 2019. November 2019, I got the machine. I set it up. I tried it a couple times, did it wrong, wasn't sure. I did it 10 minutes on the 5th of December
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't sure if I still had it set up. I also did an ozone suppository that night. So I double did it, everything. And the next night was the very, very heavy bleed. And then from then on, I did VIs starting on the 12th, every day for the rest of the month. I might have skipped one day. And then
So how long were you doing the insufflations every day?
I did it every day for the month of December.
Mm-hmm. But were you doing them for like 10 minutes, 20, 30, or?
I built up. I started 5 minutes, then I built up, I think I did 5 minutes for 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next week I build up 10 minutes and also build up a little bit of the, I don't know, what is it called? UGL or something? What is
The
it called?
concentration, that's micrograms per milliliter, or gamma. Some people call it gamma. So
Yeah,
the concentration, you mean, yeah? The ozone
yeah,
concentration?
yeah. Oh, so G stands for gamma. What is
Uh,
UGL? How come I see that? UGL.
So U, so the U is it's really the Greek letter mu.
Oh,
So it's not like a regular U. It's
oh,
like a Greek U,
okay, okay,
and it means micrograms. So
okay.
UG means micrograms.
Or I could just say gamma.
Or you can say gamma. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So do you know what gamma you were using?
41.
41. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to go on the lower sides of things. I know that you say that you can go higher.
Mm-hmm. No, 41 is pretty good. It's like a good like medium
Yeah.
concentration. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Everything about me is medium. I wear medium size. I like medium everything. Just medium.
Okay. And what oxygen flow were you using? Do you know that?
Yes, 1/8.
1/8. Uh-huh. All right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how did you protect yourself from breathing the excess ozone? Did
I
you
have one of those masks, the
the
same
masks?
you do.
Okay. How do you like this? How did
Um,
you like the mask?
it feels I love the mask because the air is so clean when you're breathing through it. But the whole picture is just bizarre. That I sometimes sit there and think, what has gone on in my life that I have to do this? And I wouldn't want any of my friends to see this. But
Mhm.
you have to do it. It is what it is. It's certainly better than I think than for me, for surgery, chemo, and radiation.
Mhm.
That would never be my route.
All right, so okay, let me recap real quick. So you starting ozonating yourself at the beginning of December 2019, and
Hmm.
around 10 days into it, you have this, what you describe like a popping experience, where in the morning you wake up and you bleed profusely.
It was
And
after the first one. It was after the first one. The very
after the
first
first
one.
one.
On the 5th, I did the first real ozone treatment with a suppository at night. So I really hit it. And the next day, that was the next night, very dark, heavy blood. And then after that, kept doing. I skipped a couple of days, I see, because I was a little bit afraid. And then starting again on the 12th and keeping going. And to give you an example, in December 2019, when I started the VIs, I had 20 bleeds of some type. Sometimes it was just a dot. Sometimes it was moderate. But I had the one heaviest one of all the time. By January, same year, 2019, I had 12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you
Mm-hmm.
can see that it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not a straight line because then it went up to 18 at one point in March, and it went in by April 10. So I just kept doing it. and through June 2019. And I didn't do it every single day because I was going between the ozone, and I still was doing that bakelin thing with the hump fat. I was going between the two because I didn't know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So by June, only 11 bleeds. By July, 7. So I just, I just keep going here. It doesn't go in a straight line. Healing doesn't go in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
People think that it should.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. So I'll go up to 11 bleeds by January 2020. By February 2020, only 2. March 2020,
Mm-hmm.
4, but they were the tiniest dots. I had to look at them with a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if they could count in a way. April, nothing. In April, I see that I did a VI every day from the 1st of April, and that's April 2020, from the 1st of April through to the 13th of April. I did one every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I skipped a few days. Sometimes, schedules got in the way.
Yeah.
Your whole life, and then May, nothing.
So how many bleeds did you have in December 2019?
2019. December 2019, 20. 20 out of
20. Uh-huh.
31 days.
Uh-huh. And in January?
Of the same month? Of the same year?
2020. January 2020.
Oh, January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. January 2020, 11.
Mm-hmm.
So a year later.
No. I mean, December 2019.
Oh, yes, right. Oh, yeah, 1 month later. Yeah, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's my dyslexia.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you had 20, then 10, and in February 2020, you had just 2, if I remember correctly. Right?
In February 2022.
Uh-huh. All right. So, okay. So to correct, so basically that popping incidence, that was after the first ozone insufflation that you did, yes?
That's correct. Yeah, because
and that scared you a little bit because you probably didn't know, okay, well, what am I doing? Is it getting worse, or is this a healing thing, right? And then you laid off for a few days with the ozone, yes?
Yes.
Then you restarted and were doing it's every day, and then you had continuously less and less days where you had some bleeding per month. Mm-hmm. And then in May 2020, it was then the first month where you didn't have a single bleeding incidence. Is this correct?
April.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
April.
And then, so you went back to the doctor in May, yes, I believe?
Okay, in May, on May 14th, I was told that I had no more cancer.
Uh-huh. So how did he determine this? Did he?
Okay, so let me explain that, because I went to, do you know what Bioenergetics is?
Roughly, but go ahead and explain.
So Bioenergetics is a system of, the Amish use it, okay? It's a system of measuring viruses, bacteria, illnesses, any problems with organs not functioning, any toxicity, tumor sizes, Lyme's it's used for, and it's all done through Chinese meridians, and it was invented by a Dr. Voll, V-O-L-L. Now, I was very, very hesitant to go to see this person who does bioenergetics, but my acupuncturist had very strongly suggested that I do it because I had never been staged. And she said, if for nothing else, you go to this person, they can tell you the size of the tumor and will be able to tell you if it's shrinking or not. Mm-hmm. And I, of course, was very skeptical because I'm science oriented, but my science always leads toward the alternative science, which doesn't get funded. So I thought, I got the appointment. It took 3 months to get the appointment. I almost canceled it many times, but then I thought it took 3 months to get this appointment. I'm going to go see this woman. Okay. So I did. Now, the way that it works is they measure all these things through the meridians of the body. It's totally painless. You sit there and they use a probe to go into different points of the hand. And she told me that the tumor was when I first went to her, was at 24, and that was February 1st. The tumor measure was number 24. I don't know exactly what the number meant, but that's what it was. And she said that I had a cancer level of, and for this system, anything from 1 to 9 is precancer, anything above 10 is full-blown cancer, of 15. So I had a tumor at 12 and a cancer at 15, something along those lines. I might be mixing the two numbers up. So she put me on a protocol, which, and I added this to the ozone with everything else I was doing, because I was doing near infrared saunas and a lot of things. My diet was changed. I had supplements. So she measured it, and I thought, well, if nothing else, there's a number here. And I'll go back, and the number will either change up or down, and we'll see. And of course, my husband was very skeptical. He's going, oh, she's just going to save the numbers changing down so she can keep, getting your money, right? And I tend to be able to, suss people out with their honesty or not. So I was feeling okay with her. And I thought, well, even if she says the numbers the same, I think I'd feel differently. Right? I would feel differently. So she put me on a protocol, the cancer protocol, whatever it was. And one of the things that I was on was bindweed. Bindweed is an herb that grows in our gardens here in the Northeast. It was a liquid. And she said that it would stop the blood flow to the tumor, because cancer makes its own blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what the heck, I'll just take it. What's, Anyway, oh my gosh, I have to say that it was, the treatment was fantastic. The next time I went back to her, which was 3 months later, my tumor was down to something like 6. And my cancer reading was also under 10. So I was in what was called precancer. And then on May 14th, when I went to her, there was no sign of the tumor and no sign of cancer. But I had all along had limes on my cervix. And she said she had never, she's actually a limes expert. That's what she really does it for. I was her first cancer person. She said she couldn't even treat that until the cancer was gone. But she did say, when you come back and your cancer is gone, your limes reading will be down. And sure enough, it was. It went from 24 to, when the cancer was gone, to an 8. Mm-hmm. So I was on the limes protocol for 3 months with her. Mm-hmm. So basically, the story of it is, I went to a bioenergetics, considered probably alternative, maybe wacko, practitioner but I have no more symptoms, So will I go to a gynecologist eventually? Of course, the pandemic happened. Mm-hmm. Just as I got better, immediately, pandemic time, all the offices, doctors' offices closed and everything like that. So I thought about it, and I was like, well, what am I going to do differently? Do I need to run to the gynecologist right now to have that checked? I don't feel like I do. Mm-hmm. I have absolutely no symptoms, and I can feel the difference. I could touch the tumor. I can't feel it anymore. I could touch the tumor.
You could palpate the tumor. You could palpate the mass of the tumor?
Yes, I could touch it with my finger.
And now, what do you feel?
Nothing. It's not there.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that it's gradually dissolved, or how did that happen? What do you think?
I think that actually the first time that I did the insufflation, I might have done too much with the combination of the actual ozone and the ozone suppository at night. I think I might have really hit it hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, or it could have been a coincidence that I came to not be afraid of the bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
because yes, in the American culture, bleeding is like, oh my God, bleeding. But in other cultures, bleeding is looked at as a good thing, a healing. The body bleeds to clean the cut out, whatever. And I thought, well, maybe this tumor is just, the body wants it to go away and it's trying to get it away. In the very beginning, I'll just digress to this. In the very beginning, I actually had chunks of flesh falling out of me. This was before ozone. This was when I first diagnosed and the bleeding started. Chunks of flesh fell out of me. And I think my cervix, and the doctor actually said, it looks like part of your cervix fell out. Well, yeah, the body is trying to get rid of the bad cells in whatever way it can.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started to look at it. I started to look at like the bleeding might be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And not a bad thing. How would we know? There's not enough study or information.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough.
Okay. But
Yeah.
you said that you could feel that tumor, that you could actually touch it and feel it.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
did you feel it after that popping incidence?
I didn't go in there right away.
Uh-huh.
I'm like not that brave. Yeah, I didn't try to do an exam right after the popping incident. Because the popping incident felt so good
Uh-huh.
that I intuitively felt that it was better. I was just everything. You could feel a well-being. One can
Mm-hmm.
feel a well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that that I mean it's a silent disease. I mean that's what they say about cervical cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing happened to me that the oncologist said would happen, which is the oncologist point blank said to me, if you don't go with our program, your cancer is going to spread up to here and you're just going to die.
Mm-hmm. What
Well,
was the program?
oh, well, I was beyond an operation. He said, actually, I was diagnosed in August 2018, but I didn't go see the oncological I can't even say it, until September of the next year, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had been doing my own program, but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see if he would give me an MRI instead of because that doesn't involve radiation, and he wouldn't. And he was like shocked. He said, I can't believe you have waited this long to come here. He said, I just can't believe it. He goes, I can tell you right now from your report, and he goes, I'm going to examine you, that you were beyond an operation just from having the extensive necrotic cells, and from this lab report. I don't even have to do a pap smear or a biopsy. You were already a year ago beyond an operation.
Okay, so how did he determine it? You said there was no CAT scan, there was no pap smear, what was it
Yeah,
called? Pap smear.
pap
So
smear. Oh
how
yeah,
did
no, he didn't do a pap smear. I had a pap smear in 2018 in August. He
mm-hmm.
went by that report because he knew already. So the way cervical cancer works is when it's just on the cervix,
Mm-hmm.
it's stage 1. When it goes beyond the cervix into the walls of the vagina or into the colon, then you're going into more advanced stages. Stage 4 is when it metastasizes and it's throughout the body. So basically, he looked for the tumor. He said, you have a tumor. That was news to me. I didn't know I had a tumor. But nobody had given me that kind of an exam. But when I went first to the first gynecologist, he couldn't. There was just too much blood. It was like blood, and he goes, your cervix is falling out. I can't even give you an exam. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
So when you have that kind of symptom, you're advanced. You're
Mm-hmm.
advanced. I was told that by the oncologist. You're advanced. This is
So
like.
what was his program? So first he wanted you to do a CAT scan, And then what was the proposition? Chemotherapy, radiation, or a combination of the two, or what did he want you to do?
I would have had more than a CAT scan. I would have had a pelvic exam under anesthesia. That was the suggestion. And
Mm-hmm.
what they would be looking for is the extent of the cancer. In other words, they wanted to see how far down the vagina it was, if it was in the colon, and the other place that it's attached to, and you probably know, the bladder. I'm not sure. There's one other place they have to look.
Okay.
I think it might be the bladder. I'd have to look back at my notes because I wrote down everything he said. And then you're under anesthesia, and then and they do a deep biopsy, okay, which means they're really going to cut into to see how deep the cancer is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the treatment, he told me, would have been there was no chance for me to do an operation that he already knew. He said they'd have to make a port into my chest, into a main aorta, and
Mm-hmm.
put chemo and also radiation. It would be 8 weeks minimum, but he didn't know how often I'd have to go or until he staged it and all that stuff. So I just said, okay, thank you. I said, okay, I'm glad that, okay, now I understand what you're offering here, basically. I just wanted to find out what you're offering here. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I can't believe you're here a year later and you didn't do anything. And I said, I am doing something. I'm very active. And then he said, well, whatever you're doing, I know nothing about it. I know nothing about it. This is what we offer here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glad he said that. This is what we offer here. Okay. So you're offering this. I'm doing this. I'm getting results doing this. I'm not going to suddenly, you are always a guinea pig, no matter what you do,
Mm-hmm.
alternative or otherwise. You're your own guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to do something that made me feel better.
This is amazing. I mean, because when you say that the first time you went to see him, it was so bad that he couldn't actually perform an actual exam because there was so much blood and tissue and everything coming out. And yet you did not allow him to scare you.
No, not at all. Not at all. So that I have to go back and then in my history. About 30 years prior, I had dysplasia. Dysplasia is, undifferentiated squamous, cells that might be cancer, might go into cancer. It's a precancerous condition. I also had evidence of HPV virus. And we have to talk about HPV virus when we talk about cervical cancer because it's really the reason you get it. It's now also being looked at as far as prostate is concerned. It's the virus behind those cancers. So I had HPV virus at that time, and I went on a diet called metabolic typing, and it's specifically from Health Excel. That's the institute, because now, back then, metabolic typing was a new word. Now a lot of people are using it. So it's Health Excel's metabolic typing, in which you get typed individually what is the best diet for you. It's very individualized. At the time that I had come up to cancer, I was a vegetarian for probably 18 years. I type as a meat eater. So I had to start eating meat like the very next day. And this was very hard for me because I was young, and I was very political about meat eating, and very, very also brainwashed by reading different books and whatnot, and being around people in the city, in the village, So I ended up, becoming a meat eater again. And that 3 years later, my dysplasia was gone, and so was the HPV virus. No evidence. So I knew, yes.
Wait a minute. So
Yes.
is this the only thing that you changed after the HPV diagnosis was the diet, that you started eating meat?
That's correct. Yes. That's
Wow.
well, more than just started eating meat. Uh, the diets are very specific. It's the program looks at 11 homeostatic functions of the body and addresses the weaker systems basically through diet and supplements. I did have to take also supplements. I had to take a lot of pancreatic enzymes, for example.
Pancreatic enzymes.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. So how long, yeah, this is something that you also mentioned on my blog. So how long have you been taking the pancreatic enzymes?
Well, what happened was, just briefly, I after I got well those 30 years ago, I did what everyone else does, is you stop doing it because you feel better, and so that was that, you know. So it makes sense. Cervical cancer takes about 15 years to appear, and it was about 15 years later, 16 years later, that my August incident happened. I still take pancreatic enzymes. I do not take as many as I used to. I used to take about 30 a day, 30 or 40 a day. I take now one for each meal.
Mm-hmm. Does this have anything to do with Dr. Nicolas Gonzalez?
Yes, a lot to do with him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes, I did his, basically, I incorporated that part of his protocol into my healing.
From what I understand, there is now one doctor who I think was a partner of his when he was alive and now treats people the way he used to treat them. I think her name is Linda Isaacs.
You can still, yes, the Gonzalez program is still accessible. And yes, there is. I don't know her. I didn't need to go to her because when I originally was diagnosed with dysplasia, the practitioner I worked with had worked with Gonzalez, and so I know the Gonzalez program. I did it. I know it. And I will want to interject here that I did go. I am a certified metabolic typing advisor because I went to school, because I had been on the program for 10 years, and it didn't make sense. They said, you know everything, you've been with 5 of our best practitioners. Why are you still going to them? Why not just go to school and become a practitioner? And I said, because I'm an artist and I don't want to practice medicine. And they were like, what? But you could just go anyway. So I said, okay. And I did. So I am a CNA.
Shut up, just do it anyway.
I know, just do it. And now they want me to go further. They want me to do functional medicine or something like that, which I might do, this winter. I might look into that because some of my colleagues who helped me through this stage of it are also functional medicine.
Now, from the little that I know about Dr. Gonzalez's works, he had this theory that basically pancreatic enzymes could help with all sorts of cancers, right? Not only pancreatic cancer. So do you think it's possible, now playing devil's advocate here, because I am totally biased pro ozone, but of course, I really just want to know the facts. So is it possible that it was really the pancreatic enzymes maybe that played the major role in your recovery?
Well, I certainly think in the beginning, since I took them right away and I had been taking them at that amount for 30 or 40 a day for a year before I started the ozone, that they were a major player because there's something called tropoblasts. He talks about tropoblasts where the pancreatic enzymes, and I'm going to be very crude at explaining this, somehow explode the cancer cells. Because the thing that I understand about cancer is that it doesn't die. It's a cell that always stays a baby. All our other cells mature, die, and then we make a new cell. But cancer cells, they don't die. So you have to get them. So it's a two-pronged situation. You have to build new cells, healthy new cells, and kill the cancer cells, which have a tendency to hide in the body. So I think, yes, that the pancreatic enzymes probably were very helpful. But I have to say that for me, the ozone was a real turning point because I could administer it directly where the cells were.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was really important. And believe me, I wouldn't have put all that stuff on your blog, had I not really genuinely thought that, wow, it just was a turning point. Being able to put something right on the wound, we ingest stuff, it goes through the bloodstream and all that, but you have to count on your body to work with all that stuff. And what about your digestion? Is it working? Or do you have leaky gut? There's so many things. But when I was able to put something right on the situation,
Mm-hmm.
that's, that was important to me.
Mm-hmm. So now let's go back a little bit. So you said they call cervical cancer the silent killer because people do not have any symptoms. So there was no pain, there was no cramps, no fatigue, no I don't know, bloating or any such things, and it's just like suddenly you start having bleeding, basically. Is this
Well, I had no of all that you mentioned, I suddenly had. And those are exactly the symptoms. But I had many other, what I'll call symptoms leading up to it. I had insomnia, I had depression, I had anxiety, and I'm actually writing a book about this now because as you can see, it's very extensive. And I have probably 15, 20 symptoms that I consider symptoms coming up to a cancer, any kind of cancer. It's not normal not to sleep through the night. It's not normal not to have a bowel movement that is easy to have and looks right.
mm-hmm.
These are, it's not normal to have allergies,
Mm-hmm.
you
So
know?
when you got that diagnosis, so that was August 2018, yes?
Yeah. Hmm.
So did you then stop eating meat, or you did not, or did you continue with eating meat?
Okay. I was tested, and metabolically, I am a meat eater.
Mm-hmm.
That will never change. I doubt that will ever change.
Now, this is great. I was a little concerned because we didn't talk about this, and the majority of people, when they get diagnosed with cancer, they immediately,
Yeah, right. That they shouldn't eat meat. That's part of my book.
right.
Did I eat meat? Yes, every day.
Awesome.
But I did follow Dr. William Kelly, William Kelly, I think he is, Dr. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote, I think, One Answer to Cancer. That was his book. He advises no red meat for 6 months, the first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I did do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy to be able to eat. I had a hamburger yesterday. Oh, God, so happy. I know, it was like such a big thing. I'm like, yes.
No, this is really good because when I heard when you were saying that you were bleeding so much, basically every day, and then not eating meat on top of this, I think this would have been disastrous, right?
Yes, I was very, very weak at times. Like you said, you just listed exactly all the things with that day of bleed. All those symptoms that you just listed came out. I did have soreness. I was tired. I felt, I was foggy. A lot of it just all of a sudden came. But it was this gradual. When I look back, it was a gradual thing that I wasn't seeing, and just accepting, like, oh, there's depression in my family. Oh, my mother was an insomniac. Oh, everybody has allergies in my family, and all that stuff, But all that stuff's gone for me now.
Mm.
It's just gone. I would be so happy. I would just be like, I'm so happy. And when like it's all chemical.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all chemical.
Mm. Now let's go back for a moment to the pancreatic enzymes. So I can imagine, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, I can imagine that when you got the diagnosis in August of 2018, that you immediately then stocked up on the pancreatic enzymes, right?
Yes.
And so since August 2018 until November, December 2019, when you started the ozone treatments, there already was a gradual reduction in the number of bleeding days per month,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Right. So it's very much possible that that the pancreatic enzymes did contribute
Oh, yes.
in a
I think
significant
so.
way.
But
Mhm.
more than just the pancreatic enzymes, it's also the proper diet and supplements. With metabolic typing, you get supplements that are individual,
Mhm.
because we are all individuals. It's not a one size fits all program.
Mhm.
So all my weaker systems were supported with the proper diet and supplements.
Mhm. Okay.
And
Let's
that
talk about this. Like, what exactly did you change after the diagnosis? What exactly did you change in your diet? Like, okay, we already established you kept eating meat throughout, except for cutting out red meat for the first 6 months. But is there anything else you eliminated since the diagnosis?
yes. When when I was tested, I tested as a fast oxidizer. So what that means is I use up the food and calories very quickly, which makes me usually eat more and more and more. A lot of times fast oxidizers are fat people because they eat, because they're using up the food so quickly. And which meant that for me, very, very much reduction in fruit. In fact, I stopped eating fruit altogether for
Mm-hmm.
a year, altogether, and it was great. I still don't do well with fruit. I can eat fruit a little bit once at a time, or a little at a time, and not too sweet. Um, and like potatoes and things like that were not the right foods for me. Anything that was too starchy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had to eat a lot of fat, uh, like uh, so I make fat bombs. My recipe will be in the book.
I'm sorry, what kind of fat bombs?
I make fat bombs
Okay.
and I just pop them in all day long.
Okay, what kind of fat is in there?
Okay, coconut oil, ghee. Um, those are the two main fats.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a nut butter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I melt it, mix it up, and then I put it into little candy things and make little candies out of them.
Okay.
No sugar or anything like that.
Okay. So what sweetener do you use?
Sometimes I don't sweeten them at all. I find them to be fine the way they are. They're more creamy. But if I do put a little sweetener in, I'll put a tiny bit of stevia,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll put there's something called apple molasses that I live in the country, and there's a lady who makes apple molasses, which is a very old type of heirloom food where they just boil down, tart apples until it makes like a thick molasses, and you just have need a drop of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it would be the equivalent to monk fruit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a monk fruit type of
Okay.
sweetener.
But no sugar,
No,
so
no.
low on starches, but you kept eating meat every day. What about gluten-containing grains or
Um,
grains in general?
I'm a person who doesn't do so well on gluten. I try not to eat it, but I can tolerate it. I can have a treat once in a while. Like I can have a quiche that has a crust, a gluten crust.
Mm-hmm.
Not every day, but once in a while, if we're out and that's what is available, I can have a quiche with a gluten
Mm-hmm.
crust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a terrible reaction to gluten.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I find that I do better without it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get crazy. It's like, you know what? I'm going to have, a piece of Ezekiel bread.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have that today. I'm going to have it once, twice a year, you know, if that's what I feel like having. But I don't have it every day, gluten.
All right, so not a lot of gluten, not a lot of starches, no or minimum no fruits, or as good as no
Yeah, no
fruit.
food.
But instead, you were stuffing your face with fat bombs every day. Yes,
Yes.
and meat. Okay, what else? Some
Vegetables, juicy vegetables. And again, this was my individual diet. It might not be the best for everyone because, for example, another person with cervical cancer, if I were to test them as a metabolic typing practitioners, might actually need to lean more toward a vegetarian diet,
Mm-hmm.
or more toward, let's say, a higher carbohydrates. We consider fruits and vegetables carbohydrates. So maybe more fruits and vegetables on their plate and a little less meat.
Mm-hmm.
That, and maybe less fat as well, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then within that it gets you know, micro managed as well, depending, and it even gets micromanaged. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you know, might be different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, generally, the way that we look a lot of people's ancestry, and the paler that your skin is and the more northern your ancestry is, the less likely you'd be able to do well on a vegetarian diet.
Mm-hmm.
Where the darker your skin is and the more toward the equator that your ancestry is, the more likely you could do well on a vegetarian leaning diet.
Mm-hmm.
But even people who live at the equator, you know, will have some kind of meat or fish or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we do look at ancestry, and that's how part of the package.
Mm-hmm.
And my ancestry is all cold climate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what about the supplements? So what type of supplements have you been taking?
I took, other than the ones that are very specific to my metabolic type, which I won't list those because I wouldn't want to lean anyone toward that. I also took Boswellia, which
Mm-hmm.
is frankincense. I took, I'd have to get it out. I mean, I was taking over 150 vitamins a day.
Wow.
So,
Oh my
that,
God.
that's a lot to just know off the top of your head. But I
Okay,
do have a
almost
book
like
that I could look at.
you're saying like 150 different pills, yes?
Yes,
Oh my God.
yes.
It's, it's like a whole meal.
Well, you got to figure that if you're taking 40 pancreatic enzymes in between meals, mind you, okay, then you're taking also supplements during the meals, and then some in the morning before you do anything, and some at night before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take that many anymore. In fact, I'm figuring out now what exactly I'm going to take going forward.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were digestive enzymes other than pancreatic enzymes, like HCl. There was one called Enzygest. You know, these would be different proprietary blends of the lipase and the protease and the different enzymes.
Mm-hmm. Now,
But
have you heard about Fembendazole? Not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is like an antiparasitic drug that is usually given to dogs and possibly to other animals. And apparently it has also anti-cancer properties. And there's a whole bunch of people who have been taking this, and they were able to either completely eliminate their tumors or keep them stable. Have you heard of it?
no, I have not, but that's exciting. So they've been giving this to dogs for tumors or for something else?
No, it's basically it's an dewormer. So in order to remove worms from the intestines of dogs primarily, maybe also to cats, but I think mainly to dogs. And so it's not marketed as a cancer drug at all. Okay, so this is just like a bunch of crazy
Yeah.
people who just by accident discovered this. And but there are like YouTube videos, and there's a Facebook group, and like lots of people talking about this. And so but it is a pharmaceutical drug. Okay, so this is a drug. but it appears to be pretty safe.
So now, do you have to go to a vet to get that drug? How do you
No,
get
not at all. That's the crazy thing. You can actually buy it on Amazon.
it?
Okay.
Oh,
You can
good.
buy it freely on Amazon, and it comes like in packets. And
Oh,
it's like there are different sizes of the packets, so you can have 1 gram, 3 gram, and 5 gram packets. Like,
mhm.
I may be wrong in this. And yeah, and people take like like different dosages of this daily,
Let
and
me
some.
just say something about, first of all, parasites. Okay.
Mhm,
Yes, it's important to look for parasites. I had what's called a GI map done.
mhm.
Are you familiar with the GI map?
So GI map, okay, you mean so that your gut biome has been tested, yes,
Yes.
or?
You poop into what looks like a Chinese container,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to scoop it out into a vial and shake it up and send it to a laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
And then what comes back is a huge report. And in that report, it tells you if you have any parasites. I had no parasites. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, I'm here's where I'm very scientific. I like the testing. I don't want to treat something that I don't have. So I didn't have any parasites, but I did have H. pylori. H. pylori is something that usually comes with cancer. And
Mm-hmm.
I did have another, I had I can't pronounce it, but it's something like Klebsiella or something like that. I'd have to look it up. It's,
Klebsiella, I think. Um,
yes, you're right. Can you say it again?
Klebsiella, I believe.
Klebsiella, yes, which is associated with women's cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we targeted those things. All right. So you're going to say, how did we do that? Well, I'd have to look back on my notes. When I say I'm writing a book, I don't have everything by memory. But we targeted those things on a 10-week program, and sure enough, 10 weeks later, I did another GI map, and those were gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can feel it, the difference. And I also had a type of pneumonia virus in my GI map. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I had pneumonia when I was 15, and it never left me, obviously. When we treated that, I have to say, and when I say we, I'm not talking about me and the oncologist. I'm talking about me and one of my colleagues uh, from metabolic typing. Uh, that pneumonia came out all over my chest. It was excruciating rash that I had never had such a thing before. And then it just disappeared and it was gone from the GI map.
Interesting. Sounds like a classic Herxheimer reaction.
Oh yeah, I have those. Yes. So that was, yeah, and that would come out on my chest.
Mm-hmm. So, Ramona, are you planning on going back to your oncological gynecologist? This is a total tongue breaker, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's hard for me to say. I am planning to go to the gynecologist because I don't have to go to the gynecologist. I can go to any gynecologist because the way that cancer, cervical cancer, is discovered is through a pap smear. So I'll just go and have a pap smear, and then I'll be checked. Yeah, I will definitely. I'd like to confirm it eventually, and I'm just thinking, when, when.
Mm-hmm. But since April of this year, you did not have any more bleeding? So,
Yeah, I have not had any bleeding for 6 straight months,
so maybe,
or any discharge. By the way, there's also a discharge that happens, and when you have necrotic cells, there's an odor like a dead animal. So yeah, so something's wrong. Let's put it that way.
okay,
That's all gone.
what kind of discharge? How does it look like? What consistency does it have? What is
It
it?
can be brown, it can be pink, it can be yellow. It's just not clear.
Mm-hmm.
And any of this you can actually look up online. Symptoms of cervical cancer will explain the discharge and all the colors and viscosity of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a kind of a thick-ish discharge with a tone, a color that it should not be, there should not be a color
Mm-hmm.
to any discharge.
You know what? It would be worth going back to that initial doctor, you know, the one who was so shocked that you didn't do anything in that period of a year, you know,
I know.
just to get his reaction, just to, you know, see what he would say to you, basically recovering from it without doing any of the things that he suggested. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if he'll see me because the general, what I have experienced is that if you don't do their protocol, they're not necessarily going to see you because they think you're coming for treatment. Also, I don't. Uh, I find that the two men that I went to were not very nice. They and I want to find a female gynecologist. So I'm going to go. I actually have found one, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go to her. I
Mm-hmm.
also want to go to a different laboratory because I don't want anything. Not to say that they would do this, but who knows? Medicine is very political. If
Mm-hmm.
I go to the same guy, I don't know how they'll manipulate that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right,
want to go to somebody who knows nothing.
right, right,
I want to get a true reading.
right.
So I'm going out of state.
All right. Yeah, good idea.
That's what I'm going to do.
Well, Ramona, is there anything else that you would like to say that we haven't covered? Anything important that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I've discovered that there's a lot of different pathways. Like you've mentioned this thing that dogs take. Ben, what is it called again?
Fembendazole, and
Fembendazole. All
and
right, so that's a
it's
path.
sold, it's sold. You know what? Hold on a second. Let me click here. It's sold on Amazon under the name of. Okay, I can't find it now. I can find it, but
Well,
it has a different brand name. So fenbendazole, from what I understand, is the pharmaceutical agent that actually does the deworming slash cancer killing, but it's sold under a different name, something with C. I'm blanking out.
okay. Well, my point is that there are people who took that for their tumors and have reported that it worked. Of course, that's all anecdotal, but these are people on the street, you know. And I took bindweed. Somebody else might do a mushroom tincture, and I did all these other things. I used the ozone. So there are pathways, and I tell this to people all the time that it's really more a matter of finding what you're comfortable with. And many people are going to be comfortable with the allopathic path, which is I just want to get this thing out of here, you know, cut it out, give me the chemo, give me the radiation. I just want to do that.
Mm-hmm,
And that's fine for that person as well.
mm-hmm,
So there's a lot of different pathways. I wanted to build my health. I didn't think that the allopathic route was going to build my health. I wasn't going after the symptom. I
mm-hmm,
was going after the root cause. The root cause is the virus, HPV. And to get rid of the virus meant that my immune system had to be built up.
mm-hmm,
And that's how I approached the whole thing. The cancer was just the symptom. I didn't really pay much attention to that.
mm-hmm.
And the bleeding was possibly my body trying to correct because that's what the immune system is trying to do. So I got over being panicked about that and embraced it.
Okay,
So yeah.
so there
Go on.
were first you were afraid when you got the diagnosis. There was some anxiety, I can
I
imagine.
was I was annoyed and I was afraid and I was felt sorry for myself because I knew it was going to be a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. It is a lot of work.
Mm-mm-mm. Oh
If,
yeah,
how many support systems do you have?
yeah. But you know, this is absolutely mind-blowing for many reasons. And you know, maybe the part that actually the cancer disappeared is maybe even the thing that even surprises me the least of all of this. But you know, the fact that you were able to withstand to basically, say no to your doctor and say, okay, thank you very much for your offer. Thank you very much, but I think I'm gonna do it differently, right?
It gets
Because
very tense, and I wanted to have an open discussion with him. I thought that we could. Thought maybe he would ask me, okay, what are you doing at least?
mhm,
And so he could say, well, you can keep doing that, but we'll do this also. But there was no rapport. It almost seemed like, and I met with him twice, the oncologist, the gynecological oncologist. I had met with another oncologist who wasn't a gynecological oncologist too, but he
mhm,
just wanted me to put me through the conveyor belt also. And that was at a different hospital. I went to do two different hospitals, two very prominent hospitals. And I'm not very good with confrontation. And I felt that there was a potential for that. And I wanted to steer clear of that. And I could tell I was being viewed as sort of like a hippie, crunchy granola type. But when the guy said, we don't know anything about what you're doing, this is what we do, I kind of appreciated that, because then he understood that people are doing something else out there and he knows nothing about it. And
mhm,
with metabolic typing, we have a phrase, they only know what they know, and what they don't know can kill you.
mhm,
They don't know about metabolic typing. They don't know about ozone. They don't know about, pancreatic enzyme. Or they might know about it, but it gets debunked.
mhm.
A lot of these things get debunked, and it's political.
Yeah.
They get debunked. It's political.
Yeah, but I agree. I had my share of having to deal with doctors, and I really appreciate it when they are able to say, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
This is already worth a lot, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If they can say, I don't know,
Yeah.
and I understand their position. They went to school. They spent a lot of money. They're paying back their loans. They are authorities. They've been giving the title doctor. They're very proud of that. I would be too. I'm a doctor now. And then you get somebody who comes in and tells you they're taking Fembendazole from Amazon that's meant for dogs. Okay, you didn't learn that in med school. You're not about to research that now. But there are doctors like Dr. Zach Bush. You must know him. Of him, you
What's his
should.
name? Tell me again.
Dr. Zach Bush. He has a product called Restore, which
Mhm,
is for restoring the leaky gut.
mhm,
You can look him up. He's a medical doctor, and boy, oh boy, he's a guy who is open.
mhm,
Dr. Mercola,
mhm,
who considered a quack, and Quack Watch. I read a lot of his articles.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, a lot of the things that I worked with, they're all considered quacks.
mhm.
Probably also bioenergetics.
But yeah, you're right. Like you call it the conveyor belt, right?
Yeah,
It's basically
there you
like the cancer conveyor belt. And this is right. Like, I mean, they go to medical school, they rack up like incredible debts, right? And then they have to pay off the debts. And then, of course, when you start working as a doctor, then you need to buy a whole bunch of equipment for your office, right? So, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions, right? And so they have to either pay the money off
go.
or just pay it off, right? So they need to make sure that they have a constant revenue stream coming in, right? And
I, I
and with
have,
chemotherapy, I mean, the chemotherapy, this is $100 billion market, all right? I
mhm.
mean, that stuff, like we're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars per year per patient that's in costs for chemotherapy, right? So this is a huge, basically each patient is just like a huge revenue stream, right? So yeah, it's really like doctors just get trapped into the system, right? And so they have no incentive into looking into some, granola crunchy, ozone voodoo bio medicine stuff, you know. For
As a
who
matter of fact, as a matter of fact, they can get their license taken away from them and have.
Mm-mm.
Um, so I had something you said gave me a thought. I mean, this is like a whole other. Might have to do a part 2 on just this part. But yeah, the doctor experience. For me, going to the doctor ever since I had pneumonia at 15 and was hospitalized, I realized that the doctors are limited. They can only use the equipment they have, so they're behind in a sense, because if things have not been tested and all that, and who puts the money up for that? We all know that's big pharma.
Mm-mm.
So uh, if something, I'm very good friends with the guy the person who's in charge of the integrative department in Sloan Kettering,
Mm-hmm.
integrative cancer department. He is the researcher behind that. And I corner him at the grocery store every once in a while and go, you are so behind because you can't get the funding for what I'm doing and
Mm-mm.
what I did. You
Mm-mm.
can't do it. And he's
Mm-mm.
like, you're right. We're
Mm-mm.
behind.
Mm-mm.
I said, there's no such thing as integrative yet.
Mm-mm.
Just have it on your door. That's all.
Yeah. Well, Ramona, thank you very much for everything that you said and for giving hope to other people. And I hope that this will serve others who are looking into alternative options and are not willing to go down the conventional rabbit hole. They go down the conventional cancer conveyor belt. So yeah, thank you very much. And when you finished your book, then we'll have you on again.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's great to meet you and talk to you, Paula.
It was great to talk to you.
Okay.